so privileged to have Reverend Dr. V.S. Varughese with us. He's not first time to us. I think this is the third batch of Faith and Active Citizenship course. And I think this is the third time he's bringing the closing address. As far as possible, we try to retain the same faculty for these courses. So he's also part of this faculty team in one sense. So Reverend Dr. V.S. Varughese, formerly known as V.S. Achan, among his students and colleagues, is currently the principal of Marthoma Seminary, Kottayam, Kerala. He's a professor of religions at Marthoma Theological Seminary and received his BSc and B.Ed from Kerala University and BD and MPH from Sarambu University, and then PHM and PhD from Princeton Theological Seminary. His doctoral dissertation was on religion, Renaissance, and protest, Sanskritization, and Protestantization. As an ordained minister of the Marthoma Syrian Church, he has served as the principal of Dharmajyoti Vidyapith, Faridabad, and he was a visiting faculty of MS Oti Seminary in Molandurthi and EJ Institute in Tiruvalla, and chief editor of Marthoma Seminary Journal. So we are privileged to have you, Reverend Dr. V.S., with us. And now I will hand over the time to V.S. Achan for his closing address.
Dear Isaac Thomas and other colleagues and participants of the third session of the course on faith and active citizenship. I consider it as a great privilege and honor to be with you at this closing session of the course. For the last 2 months, you were deliberating on the theme, faith and active citizenship, and also engaging in the contemporary scholarship, and also going back to the biblical and theological affirmation. As a faith community and as citizens of a nation, we have certain obligations, responsibilities, and also certain rights. Any right comes with certain obligations and responsibilities. So we have to address these issues. I am confident that for the last 2 months, you were deliberating on these issues. When Isaac Thomas gave the course description and the summary or report on the course, he highlighted some of the aspects, some of the issues deliberated during the sessions. And also the community or the participants comes from different nations and different ecclesiastical, linguistic, cultural backgrounds. So each has its own binding on the person. When we look upon the issue of faith and active citizenship, we have to deliberate on what citizenship means and how we can use this, or we can live in a nation as citizens of that nation while affirming our faith commitments. Each person or each nation have their own constitutive narratives. A constitutive narrative means the narratives that constitute our self-understanding, and our self-understanding sometimes reflect on how we perceive realities around us. As faith persons or members of a nation and members of a faith community, how we perceive the reality around us. What are some of the issues that we are confronting? How the political, the social, the economic, the religious space recalibrates us. and challenges us to recalibrate our identity. As I said, each person has their own constituted narrative. This constituted narrative encompasses all these aspects. The faith dimension is there, the economic dimension is there, the cultural, linguistic, and the political aspirations are there. Sometimes many of these functions are exclusive claims. When we are upholding an exclusive claim, we are often marginalized others, or an othering is happening in our social consciousness. They do not belong to us. The us versus them attitude is prevailing there. When this us versus them attitude prevails, often the problem with us is, often we see the other as a threat to our very existence. When we discuss about the issue of citizenship, often we come across the us versus them attitude and the resultant othering and the marginalization and oppression that causes because of this ideological presupposition of othering. When we look into the book of Esther, we come across this attitude. Mordecai, Haman came up with the very ideology and philosophy of othering and projecting the other as a threat to the very existence of the empire. The empire always proposes this ideological suppression, oppression, and marginalization. The other, or the Jewish community residing in that empire, is a threat to the very existence of the cultural, the religious, the doctrinal values of the community, and in that way it challenges the authority of the empire. So we have to eliminate them. Often this comes as the result of the suspicion about somebody. When we read the book of Esther, it clearly illustrates that when Mordecai was sitting out there, Haman was going through the gate. Haman got the feeling that Mordecai is not showing respect to them. That very suspicion resulted in the ideological frame of othering. In our context, or in our present day context, in many nations, we come across the very issue, projecting the other as a threat because of the confusion, because of the marginalization, or because of our attitude and how we perceive the other. So when we are talking about faith and active citizenship, the marginalization based on suspicion and confusion, the suspicion about the other, the way they act, the way they behave, the way they think, the way they speak, the way they eat. All these comes as something suspicious. This is a dangerous proposition when we are looking into many of the nations around us or many of the communities around us. Often, this suspicion also becomes part of our constitutive narrative. There, the exclusion of the other becomes so powerful, and often that results in the ideology of eliminating the other. In the book of Esther, we come across this aspect. This never ends there. That is the problem we are facing. When Haman was proposing this idea, that it got changed because of the intervention of Esther. But when we come to the end of the book of Esther, the community who say by the involvement of Esther, that community themselves become a marginalizing community. They have a constituted narrative, and based on their narrative, they are othering the other people and became an agent of exclusivism. So when we look into the history, this exclusivism that marginalizes or engages in the othering of communities, that has a devastating effect on communities. So as active citizens and faith community, members of a faith community, we have to rearticulate and recalibrate our constitutive narrative based on the kingdom values. The kingdom values is rooted in justice, peace, and joy in Holy Spirit. Often the element of justice that we are not taking serious. We are not taking seriously the dimensions of peace. We are not taking seriously the very idea of joy in Holy Spirit. As a faith community, when we are publicly engaging in our neighborhood, this issue, the issue of justice, is very important. Even we are not taking the issue of justice seriously, we are often ending up in ideology of othering and marginalization, and that finally resulted in the ideological proposition of eliminating the other because the other is a threat to our very existence. So when we are talking about recalibrating our constitutive narrative, the basic of our constitutive narrative is the value that Jesus taught us. The depth of love that Jesus showed on the cross. The depth of mutuality and relationship that Jesus revealed through his life. In order to be a witness as a Christian community in the public, we have to inculcate, propagate, practice the values of love and justice that results in peace and joy. Often when we look into the neighborhood in which we are living, many are getting victimized. Many are struggling. Often, as I said earlier, the other is seen as an object of our pleasure. There also the problem. Now, one issue I highlighted is the issue of other. And the other is we are making everything as a commodity to give us profit, or seeing everyone as an object for our pleasure. So we are losing respect towards the other. That is what we are seeing in our neighborhood. The children, the women, the people, those who belong to the marginal sections of our society, the Dalit, the tribal, the disabled, all are getting marginalized in our society. We often define our constitutive narrative based on certain understanding of efficiency. One issue I highlighted is seeing the other as a threat to our existence based on certain exclusive claims. The other is more rampant in our society. The Dalit, the tribals, the women, the disabled, all are seeing, we are marginalizing them based on our understanding of efficiency or our consciousness of purity or pollution concept or the honor and shame dichotomy of ideological principles. As an active citizens of this nation or any nation, and as members of a faith community, we have to go beyond seeing the other as not as a means of charity, not as a means of having pleasure, not as the other that is a threat, but the other is constituting our understanding and ourselves. So in our self-understanding or our constituted narratives, we have to see the other as a valid segment and saying that I because you are. Bible talks about this very notion. Our existence is depending upon the very existence of the feeble one or the vulnerable one in our society. Without them, we have no authentic existence because they are created in the image of God. We are bearing the image of God. And everyone on this earth is a creation of God. As faith community, how we can transcend the observing process or how we can go beyond the idea of marginal or the proposition of marginalizing the other based on their efficiency, or how we are seeing the other as an object of our charity, we have to go beyond. Because Christ never taught us to consider the other as a threat, or the other as a means of pleasure, or the other as an object of charity. Jesus always challenged us to see the other as the one who created in the image of God. This very faith position or faith affirmation helps us to actively engage in the public as a person who believes in Jesus Christ. Bible talks about this aspect. Bible never talks us to go with simply which I'm not asking not to do charity. But why charity? Because charity is needed, because there is marginalization, exploitation, and oppression is there. That is why there is someone who deserves charity. If there is one who deserves charity in our neighborhood or in our parish or in our society, that means there is some kind of exploitation, some kind of marginalization, some kind of oppression is there. If we can transcend that, then there is no need for charity, because what all things God provided is shared among us. But now we are gathering or accumulating their own resources too for our enjoyment. for our pleasure. That is why I said the other is not an object of pleasure for us. Bible always talks about. That is why it may happen in our society. That is why Bible always talks about the celebration of Jubilee, the Jubilee year, and giving out what all we have. That is what when Zacchaeus met Jesus, Jesus never asked him to give what he had. But the very meeting of Jesus and Zacchaeus transformed Zacchaeus, and he understood the issue, the economic issue that prevailing in his society. That is why I said, I'm ready to share my resources. I'm ready to amend my sinful ways of accumulating and grabbing things from others, exploiting others. So this transformative dimension is needed in our public witnessing. So as I said in one of the early sessions of this gathering, I think it is 3 or 4 years time, witnessing doesn't simply mean preaching or propagating. The original meaning is becoming a martyr. A martyr. And also, when you are becoming a martyr, when you are with people, that means witnessing is witnessing with the people, with the marginalized, not to extend charity, but to be with people and empowering them to have their own authentic share on this universe because human beings. So what all things? If we are segregating people based on the religion, caste, creed, gender, or physical or mental ability, we are going against the basic biblical affirmation of equality. The basic affirmation is being with the marginal. So our public engagement should be with the people, not with the authority or the power regime. The power regime always uses for the benefit or the profit. When we read the book of Esther, the festival or the feast is going on in the king's court. When they were all enjoying the feast, the king ordered the queen to be there in the presence of the court, before the officials or the friends of the king. And he wanted to show the queen in all her majesty. But the queen refused. Even the powerful, the regime or the power centers use the author as a means of pleasure. But Queen Basti resisted the king's order to be an object of pleasure before the court. Her disobedience caused her much. She was thrown out of her office as the queen of the nation. So when we are going against the whims and fancies of the kingdom of the power, we may be thrown out. We may get marginalized. We may become a martyr. The very example of Stan Stani is before us. The very example of other people, Martin Luther King Jr. is with us. Bishop Oscar Romero is before us. Because when we are going against the whims and fancies of the empire and the emperor, we may be thrown off, and our life may be questioned. Our very existence may be questioned. That is why active citizens and faith engagement is not a simple issue or not an issue that can be deliberated in a classroom. That has to be lived out in our neighborhood. To be with people, the marginalized, the oppressed, the exploited, those who are considered as inefficient, those who are considered as an object of thirst, those who are considered as an object of pleasure for the elite. So, when we are looking into this issue, we have to clearly deliberate on how public witnessing can be done in an era where the issue of suspicion, confusion, complexities are prevailing, where the other is seen as a threat or projected as a threat, where the other is considered as a mere object of our pleasure, where the other is considered as inefficient. Active citizenship challenges us to be actively engaged in our neighborhood to make our life more meaningful and authentic, and also challenging the individuals, the communities, and the nations to recalibrate their constitutive narrative. Many a times, this constitutive narrative carries some kind of a primordial sentiment. And we are often forced to celebrate that primordial sentiment that has a hegemonic dimension in itself. If we are not able to reinterpret the hegemonic dimension in that so-called celebrated primordial sentiment, that becomes a tool of oppression. So when we are looking into active citizenship, we have to recalibrate, rediscover, reinterpret the primordial sentiments, the constitutive narratives that is valid even to our faith affirmation. The faith affirmation that constitutes us. What are some of the hegemonic elements? Is there any? When we are carrying certain practices and certain traditions with us, whether that suits to the biblical affirmations and claims and the life that Jesus showed on Calvary. Cross is the greatest symbol of love, the acme of love. Golgotha is the acme of love. And many got hanged there, but the very death of Jesus transformed. So as members of a faith community, the model before us is Jesus. As faithful citizens of a nation, the model before us is the love and justice that Jesus upholds. It is our responsibility to be recalibrate, reinterpret, reread our faith understanding, our primordial sin, our constituted narratives. Because as I said earlier, often our constituted narratives excludes many. But Jesus never exclude anyone. Even the leper, the Syrophoenician woman, the publican, the sinner, everyone has a place before Jesus. But they all got transformed by the transforming love of Jesus. As faithful members of a faith community and active citizens of a nation, it is our responsibility to bear witness to that love by being with people or witnessing the love in our neighborhood. And what is our attitude towards the other? how we are seeing the gender issues in our neighborhood, the disabled, the sexual minority. All these are issues. We have to speak about all these issues because these are realities around us. So when we are concluding our session, it is our responsibility to go back to our deliberations and our discussion. What are some of the narratives that constitute us? What are the hegemonic dimensions in our narrative that often exploit, oppress, marginalizes the other? What are some of the narratives that helps challenge or that always we use to exploit the other? What are the narratives that often consider the other as inefficient or the other as sinners? How we are looking at the issue of the vulnerable one, how we are looking into the corruption around us. Because when we are talking about, even though my time is up, I'll take just 1 or 2 minutes and I'll wind up. The issue of corruption is rampant in our society. And the faith community is not free from that. That is one of the saddest things. We are talking about the kingdom values. We are talking about the values that Jesus uphold. We are talking about the love that Jesus manifested on the cross. We are talking about the justice that Jesus stood for. And we are talking about we are a kingdom community. We are saying that we are looking for the eternal life with Jesus, the actualization of salvation in our neighborhood. We are talking about the transformation of this earth into a new heaven and new earth, as the book of Revelation prophesies. But often we are becoming corrupt. The moral decline, the ethical decline, the economic corruption. Everything is run, not only in our society at large, but even in our own neighborhood. We are talking about exploitation and oppression in our neighborhood, but in our own family. Violation of right, even in our family. Domestic violence, that is rampant in our society. When we are talking about faith and active citizenship, all this comes in. It is from the micro level to the macro level. It is from our own personal experience to the national level and the international level. Whether we are following Christ, whether we can be with people, witnessing us the courage to take martyrdom and also the courage to be with people, witnessing. Let me conclude my words.